This episode of The Biggest Table is brought to you in part by Wild Goose Coffee. Since 2008, Wild Goose has sought to build better communities through coffee. For our listeners, Wild Goose is offering a special promotion of 20% off a one-time order using the code TABLE at checkout. To learn more and to order coffee, please visit wildgoosecoffee.com. A chance encounter with a gentleman back in 2008, while he and his church were cleaning and restoring a cemetery, sent Chris Battle questioning how and why he did church. 10 years later, in 2018, his life trajectory changed when he started a garden at his church. And it was through this garden that Chris began to find answers for the questions he had started asking a decade ago. And since 2018, Chris has sought to fight food insecurity in his zip code in Knoxville, Tennessee, seeking to transform a food desert into a food oasis through Battlefield Farm and Garden. I was fortunate enough to sit down and have a wonderful conversation about Chris's journey and the incredible work he is doing for his community. In some ways, he has become pastor to more people through planting a garden, people who would never step foot into a physical church. Enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Biggest Table. I'm your host, Andrew Camp. And in this podcast, we explore the table, food, eating, and hospitality as an arena for experiencing God's love and our love for one another. And today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Chris Battle. Just a little bit about Chris. He's originally from Cincinnati, and Chris has earned degrees from Morehouse College, the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, and Cincinnati Bible College. Since then, he has pastored churches in Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, and Tennessee, while also being an adjunct professor both in the U.S. and abroad. He has also been an active member of his communities, working with diverse faith groups to tackle pressing issues, including gun violence and creation care. In 2018, his life trajectory changed when he started a community garden named Battlefield Farm across the street from Tabernacle Baptist Church in Knoxville, Tennessee, which opened his eyes to the effect of food disparity in his community. Since 2018, the garden has grown and now includes the Eastside Sunday Market. Chris is also now helping other churches and organizations establish gardens in their own community. He is married to Toma, and together, through fostering and natural birth, they have 19 children. Wow. Well, thank you for joining me, Chris. It is an honor and a privilege to just chat and get to know you through this podcast.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I'm enjoying and looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. So let's start here. What was the role of food and the table and hospitality in your life growing up?
Growing up. That's an interesting question because I never pondered that until I started doing what I'm doing now.
Right.
Two of my great-grandfathers were farmers. I actually can say that because I knew them personally.
Wow.
My maternal great-grandfather had 150 acres. My paternal great-grandfather I think he had 300 or so. They were farmers. My grandfather, who actually lived next door to us, used to plow up his garden every year, and I would follow behind him in his footsteps in the newly tilled soil and just try to follow him. So there's always been farming, gardening in the family. And I always did a little bit of gardening, little plot here, plot there. I don't consider myself a great gardener. I just like watching stuff grow, and I would ultimately just end up giving it away. So that's always been a part of my life, working in the soil, not to a large extent, but it's kind of pastime for me for the most part. Yeah.
Awesome.
Until 2018.
Until 2018. Yeah. I want to get there and understand what all led to this major life trajectory change.
Yeah.
You've been a pastor, and what was your call to ministry like, and where did that come from, and what's been your faith journey?
Yeah. Well, I came to know Jesus as a child. At least I came to love the church. I'll put it that way. And then I was always in church. My father was the superintendent of the Sunday school. My grandmother was the clerk. I think my parents actually met at church. So church was an integral part of our lives and my upbringing. I went to college and felt a call to ministry. Accepted that call my sophomore year while I was at Morehouse College, and went to my first church in Bowling Green, Kentucky, at the tender age of 26, and didn't know what I was doing. Coming out of Southern Baptist Seminary, I'll go out there. I say, I'm going to go save the world,
Yeah.
And so doing those things. But so the faith journey was very kind of follow the pattern, from what church had taught me. You go to church, go to church on Sunday, maybe Bible study on Wednesday. Don't smoke, don't chew, and don't date girls that do.
Yeah.
That whole, the whole,
right.
It was very, what's the word I'm looking, robotic almost.
Okay.
And then by the time I moved here to Knoxville in 2008, I'm coming from a pastoral perspective now.
Yeah.
I've been pastoring close to 30 years at that point.
Wow.
I'm like, maybe need to approach this thing a little differently. I love pastoring, love preaching. But I wanted to look at this. This is probably going to be my last pastorate. Maybe let me approach this thing maybe from a more philosophical perspective, So
okay.
I said, what can I? So I came to Knoxville and asking the question, what can our church do to change the culture, to affect the culture of the community? So that's the way I was approaching it. Moved down here, and one of the first projects we did was to clean a cemetery that was across the street from the church. And what happened at that cemetery literally transformed my life. It was Oddfellow Cemetery is the name of it, and most of the people buried there were born in slavery. Wow. And Andrew, it was a mess. Overgrown, full of debris and garbage, headstones knocked off. And I told the church, I said, this is an embarrassment. I'm not even from here, but this is an embarrassment to the community. It's an embarrassment to our history. Let's go clean this cemetery. And so we went out, about 30 of us. I'd been here maybe a month or two. About 30 of us out there, and we're mowing, we're chainsawing. We're putting headstones back up. We've got bags and bags of debris that we've collected. And this brother pulls up in a pickup truck. He stops me and starts thanking us for what we're doing. And I'm excited, man, the community seeing we're doing something, we're making a difference, we're affecting the culture, we're making a change,
Yeah.
And but then my Southern Baptist evangelism Campus Crusade for Christ came out at me because I thought I'd caught a fish, right?
Yeah.
And I said, brother, won't you come join us at the church, which was literally across the street. And these were his words, and I quote, I ain't coming to your damn church. And he pulled off. And it messed me up. I sat there mesmerized. I'm like, why he cussed my church? And so I'm perplexed by this, right?
Yeah.
You fast forward then to 2016, and they did a study here in Knoxville of church attendance, the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Right. And
what they learned from this study is that only 20% of Knoxvillians go to church on a regular basis. 20%. And I'm finding out that's pretty common across the country.
Yeah.
And regular was considered once a month.
Yep.
Roughly 40% were done with church. They used to go to church, don't go anymore, consider themselves spiritual, love Jesus, hate the institution.
Yep.
The other 40% had no religious affiliation. And I'm saying, well, it looks like nobody's going to anybody's damn church.
Right.
And then I'm asking my friends, my pastor friends, across racial lines, across denominational lines, really literally across the country. And they're saying the same thing. People aren't coming to church. Church attendance is down. We're having to change our budget. I might have to get another job. These are the testimonies I'm hearing. And so I said, well, maybe, I'm saying to myself, maybe we need to do church differently. But I'm not quite sure what that looks like. Yeah. I'm a baby boomer, and they say we're stuck in our ways.
Yeah.
And so the things that we would do that I was doing, and like, okay, maybe this could be attractive to people, get them to come to church, was, was really just preaching to the choir. We were doing things to get our members
Yeah.
and so I'm like, I'm really struggling with this. What do we do? How do we do church differently? I don't know what that looks like. I am extremely perplexed, right?
Hmm.
And it happened that I ran across these guys who were from like Michael Frost. Matter of fact, I was literally with him today. I just left a meeting with him
Okay.
today.
Yeah.
He's in town. Missional guy, Alan Hirsch. I met these guys,
Yep.
and they literally started to transform my whole way of thinking that church is not a building. It's not a point on our GPS. It's not a place we go to. It's who we are. Okay, cool. Yeah. But still, how do we get folks to come here?
Yeah.
Because right down to it, I need folk in the building so I can get paid.
Right.
So we can keep the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said before, I've always dealt dabbling in the gardening, and we had a plot of land. This is 2018 now.
Yeah.
We had a plot of land, and I said, well, why don't we do a little garden here, right? Do a little community garden.
Yeah.
Cool. And asked a friend of mine to come by and help me. He was working at the botanical garden, and said, hey, give me some insights. I don't know about this community garden stuff. I just know I want to do a garden, actually, for my own self-benefit, because that way I can do the garden and still say I'm at the church at the same time.
Right.
I wasn't trying to go out and, necessarily feed the community. I just wanted to have a garden.
Yeah.
And we started talking about, and he opened my eyes really to food disparity and what the so-called food desert.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, USDA says if 1/3 of your community is living in poverty and more than a mile away from the nearest grocery store, you're considered a food desert.
Right.
Well, the median income of my zip code, 37915 zip code, is $17,000 a year. We were 2 miles away from the nearest grocery store. There is no grocery store in our zip code.
Wow.
And that.
Can you say that? How big is your zip? How many people are we talking about? Because I think most of my listeners.
I think between about 5,000 to 6,000.
Okay. Because most of us, as a white middle-class person, that thought is unfathomable to a lot of people.
Now we're a relatively small zip code. I don't know how they figured these zip codes out.
No.
I'm assuming it was based on density. Because we got a lot of high rise, a lot of subsidized housing units. So you got more people in a smaller space.
Yeah.
But still, they had to go 2 miles to get to the nearest grocery store.
Wow. And
I'm like, this is ridiculous. I think this is a problem that we can fix, and so it became my mission, literally at that point, to go and let's fix this. I reached out to some pastor friends of mine who had vacant lots.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, why don't you use a garden? Let's create a garden here, because on one hand, it'll help us solve this problem of food disparity.
Yeah.
I truly believe that if you don't have control over your food source, you're not really liberated or free. No. If somebody else is telling you what to eat, you're not free. But secondly, is what changed in terms of my understanding of church and how to do church differently. I would go to the garden every morning. My wife would tell you I was there waiting for the sun to come up. Hurry up, son.
Okay.
I would stop at McDonald's and get my large coffee with 5 cream and 2 Splenda and go head straight to the farm, right? To my garden at that time. And but what was happening is I started meeting people in the community. And people were coming to the garden who would never come to my brick and mortar Black Baptist church.
Right.
And something said to me, maybe this is how we should do church. Because they're not coming to my church, but they are coming to my garden.
Right.
I've actually written a book, and it's called "I Ain't Coming to Your Damn Church, but I Will Come to Your Garden."
Yeah.
I have to send you a copy, Andrew.
No, I would love
but,
to.
but yeah, that's what transformed everything for me. Like maybe how do we incorporate church and garden? And so for me, people come to my garden. Who again? We got white folks, we got gay, lesbian, trans. I think I may have a witch or two.
Right.
I mean, everybody comes to my garden. Atheists, agnostic, they come to the garden. There's something about the soil, working in the soil, that equalizes us. We have conversation. We develop relationships. I was raised that you didn't talk to those type of people. Right. They were the others. Yeah. If you're going to be holy, you have to separate yourself from them. But then it kind of hit me one day. I'm like, well, if that's being holy, maybe Jesus wasn't holy. Yeah. Because he was always hanging out with them.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, maybe I want to be more like Jesus than your definition of holy. Right. And as a result, my goal is that not to sit down with somebody and go through the 4 spiritual laws with them. God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life. Nah, it's more like, let's just develop a relationship. And prayerfully, hopefully, you'll see the Christ in me and this kingdom of peace that we're trying to build. And as a result, you'll ask the question, why do I do what I do? Why are you the way you are? And then I get to share the gospel. That's the goal. That's how I do church now. Right. We do have a little service at the church. We call it at the farm. We call it the CUT, the CUT.
Okay.
It's an acronym for the church under the tree. And we meet when God says it's okay. It means it ain't raining or it's too cold.
Right. So it seems like right now it's been a little difficult to meet.
It's been a little difficult. Yeah, we do meet at a home though. Okay. On the inclement days. But that's how, for me, that's how church is now. And it's through food. I take food out every week. We take out about a ton of fresh produce. Actually, about 2 tons of fresh produce out into the community each week through our partnership with Second Harvest, which is a subsidiary of Feed America. Okay. And Nourish Knoxville. They run all the farmers markets in the city, and we buy from them. We buy from what the farmers don't sell. They give it to us, and we take it out into the community that's been deprived of fresh fruits and vegetables. Because your zip code shouldn't determine your access to fresh food and be available to you.
Yeah. Because food deserts, it's not just about the access, it's about illness. Food deserts contribute to obesity, to diabetes, health issues.
We have the largest rate of diabetes, heart issues, and hypertension in the community, right here.
No, I believe it. Yeah. Wow. So there's a lot there, right?
I'm sorry. You need to stop me, brother, when I get too long.
There's so much great there. And I love, you mentioned Michael Frost, and I love Michael Frost's work. And he was actually kind enough to be a guest on my podcast a few months ago. And his work, is beautiful of, what does the church look like? And he's a big proponent of going out into the neighborhood, and discerning where God is working. And that sounds like what this garden has become for you.
It truly has. I thought I was the community pastor. We had we would do a block party every year, back to school block party, and people would come from all around. We would have 500 or 600 people show up just to get backpacks for the kids. We give them fresh haircuts, get the young ladies get their nails done. We give them food and all this stuff. When Flint, Michigan, when they poisoned the water in Flint, we led a campaign to get 5 truckloads of water up through there. We have a justice ministry here. I was the first co-president. So I'm thinking I'm the community pastor, right?
Yeah.
But what I realized is that the people in the community didn't even know who I was.
Yeah.
It was a self-designation.
No, right.
And but now, I imagine there's more people in the community that call me pastor,
Hmm.
just because of my relationship with them.
Yeah.
Because I'm out there with them each and every day. I have the honor of being able to work, worship, and play, if you would, in the same zip code.
Yeah.
And so I live amongst my people.
Hmm.
I work where I understand the hurt, the pain, and definitely trying to fight, this food disparity um, has become my mission and my passion. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it about food disparity that just enlivens you then? Like how has this been your passion or
Well, I think I saw a need, and I'm like, I think we can fix it,
hmm.
and I didn't need I didn't need to go to any governmental agencies. I didn't have to. I'm like, no, let's just grow. Let's just do gardens.
Yeah.
You know, and because Andrew, what we're trying to do, we're trying to get everybody in our community as much as possible to grow at least one crop.
Hmm.
If everybody grows one thing well, you grow great turnips, I grow great turnip greens, Susie grows great cauliflower. Everybody grows something.
Yeah.
And we trade, we barter, we share. We could practically eat for free.
Yeah.
But we also create community.
Hmm.
And that just it's one of those things that just makes sense to me. And number one, everybody has to eat.
Right.
What the people in my community are eating is killing us.
Hmm.
They're going to the dollar stores, they're going to the corner stores, and they're not getting any fresh produce. Because we not only live in a food desert, we also live in what is called a food swamp.
Hmm.
And
What's
a
a food?
food swamp is when there's 4 unhealthy choices for every healthy choice.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, so when you go to the Kroger that I go to, I bet we pass 9, 10 fast food restaurants, corner store, gas stations, or whatever, that will say food mart,
Right.
but there's no fresh produce in there.
No. It's highly processed. It's
Highly processed.
yeah. High in sugar, high in fat.
Yeah,
But yeah, so you're right. The food that you have access to is literally killing you.
literally. Yeah, there's a young lady. I can't. Her name escapes me. She's written a book called "Slow Death,"
Hmm.
and it's basically just that we're killing ourselves slowly just through eating this processed food. And it's ridiculous. I mean, food ought to be available and it ought to be free because we all need
Yeah.
it. At least vegetables. If
Right.
it comes out of the ground,
Yeah.
it ought to be free. Now, if I cook it for you, that's a different story.
Right. Yeah. So then
Yeah.
you've mentioned community, you've mentioned the conversations. Like what has community then looked like for you since starting this garden?
Wow. It has definitely broadened. I meet people when we go out. Like I said, we serve basically 4 subsidized housing units in the community, right?
Hmm.
And we could do more. I just don't have the capacity right now,
Right.
at this moment.
Hmm.
And meeting the people there is we've just created this new community because I'm meeting these people every day or every week, and I've become some of their pastors.
Right.
They come, they talk with me, we have conversations, we laugh, they're crying. Can you pray for me? This is happening every week. I'm seeing people. I saw a lady the other day, just broke my heart because she came out on the wheelchair. She had been walking out, and I noticed that her leg was missing.
Hmm.
And she said she had her both of her feet had been both of her feet have been amputated, and I guess she got some veins got infected or whatever, and they had to cut off her leg. And I mean, it's literally breaking my heart to see that's happening, and I know what it's from. And I'm like, we have the cure, we have the answer, we can fix this thing, but it's just about making it more available to the community, and yeah, that's why it became my passion. Again, my goal was not to feed people. My goal was just to have a garden because I like gardening, you
Right.
know. But it's like God said, Chris, nah, you're going to do more than this, you know. What's that? He told John, Peter to go feed his sheep.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know he meant literally.
No, but it
Yeah,
starts back.
I was fine doing it from the pulpit.
Yeah. But it started with that crisis back when you were cleaning that cemetery, and that gentleman said he's not coming to your church.
Yeah.
You know, and started you on this trajectory of thinking, okay, how do I see the needs in my community and meet the needs in my community?
Yeah. And it was just kind of it was like a 10-year process, actually, you know,
Right.
that I'm really struggling with this issue. And that gentleman, if he walked in my door right now, I wouldn't know who he was, you know.
No.
But I do need, I need to send out an apology to him for not just being, you know, considering who he was. Because I was seeing numbers.
Yeah.
You know, the way we measure success in our churches is so backwards. You know, we talk about what butts in the pews, baptisms in the pool, bucks in the plate, and building programs.
Yeah.
You know, but you can have all of that and not know Jesus, not see the kingdom, right?
Right.
And but I think it's really about, you know, as Mike Frost would say, helping people see the reign of God in the community. Help people see that life, we can have a better life, that Christ offers us an alternative to this craziness that we're living in, that we can live in places of shalom.
Yeah.
We can have communities that are whole. And part of that wholeness is eating.
Yeah. He told us to eat in remembrance of him. And the end times, you know, it's a marriage supper at the very end. And so,
well, I mean, it started in a garden.
It did. Yeah.
It started in a garden. And if you read Revelation, it's going to end in a garden.
Right.
You know, so yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. You're going to get me to preaching here, bud.
Oh, no, let's go. Let's do this. No, because it is. The garden becomes a central motif of the place of God's beauty and abundance.
Yeah.
And if we're just metaphorically, as pastors or Christians or followers of Jesus, whoever you are, if we're just metaphorically speaking of God's abundance, but not showing it to our people and providing it for our people, they're not going to taste and see that the Lord is good.
Amen.
And so, this idea of the garden just then allows you to give a glimpse of what God wants to provide for his people.
Yeah. It is so interesting because, you know, I had a guy the other day who came by. He's English, but he's from Britain. And he lives in the community, and he said he had been following me on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And he just happened to see me at the garden one day. And he stopped by. We were chatting a little bit. He says, I believe in your mission. I'm not too big about the God of your mission, but I believe in your mission, you know. And I'm like, okay, we got to start here.
Yeah.
You know, but at least he came and we could begin to have this conversation. Right. We can talk about the God of this mission, you know. But too often, I think in our world today, we're so polarized. You know, we got everybody in these different political beliefs, you know, left and right.
Yeah.
Pro and con, Democrat, Republican, whatever, you know, and we don't talk to each other. You know, At least at the farm, we can talk.
Yeah. No, and I was curious because then, you know, 2018, we're in the midst of political strife. 2020 comes, we have COVID. Like, what role did the garden play through COVID? And
well, interestingly enough, in 2019, I resigned from my pastorate position.
Okay.
I resigned from there and just went on to do the garden. So 2020 comes, the pandemic comes, and the work of the garden continued, you know. We had not yet started delivering produce to the community. We struggled. I mean, you know, because, you know, it was pandemic. You know? And so those were really, because a couple of things that happened. So we had started a farmer's market in 2018, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I left in 2019, that meant the garden that I had at the church, they kind of said goodbye to me.
Right.
But there was a small 2-acre urban farm called Abbey Field. And the young lady that was running it left, and they needed somebody to run it. And for some reason, I raised my hand, right? And so I moved from a 16 by 12 plot to 2 acres of farm.
Wow.
And I learned that there's a huge difference, all right? Then that property was sold to some developer. And so we're now at our present spot. And we only have maybe a half acre, but there. But it was during that time, it was during pandemic that we purchased the half acre.
Okay.
So we were just kind of rebuilding this up. We had to do raised beds because the soil is so bad. It's real rocky. Here in Knoxville, when they take down a house, they just cave it into the basement.
Oh gosh.
So you got a lot of, you don't know what your soil content is.
Yeah.
But we were building beds, putting in soil and what have you. So that first year of the pandemic, it was just a matter of building.
Yeah.
So, and then 2021, 22, I guess, is when we really started rolling in terms of getting out there and serving the community. So there was a church here, Concord United Methodist Church. They serve pantries, and every so often they get sweet potatoes.
Okay.
And Brother Mike called me, said, "Brother Chris, would you like some sweet potatoes?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "How much would you like?" "Well, how much do you have?" "Oh, we got a plenty." Well,
Yeah.
So I ended up going home with 200 10-pound bags of sweet potatoes.
Wow.
Took them down to the farm, got on Facebook Live and said, "Hey, come get these potatoes." Within 2 hours, they were gone.
Wow.
People were coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
Then I said, well, the demographic that I'm trying to reach may not have transportation, may not have internet. How do I get this to them?
Mm-hmm.
And got this idea about doing a veggie van. So was able to get a old minibus, got it converted, and we called it Fannie Lou after Fannie Lou Hamer, civil rights activist who also had the Freedom Farm Initiative in Mississippi. And we started taking produce out to the community, and again, through our relationship with Second Harvest and with the Nourish Knoxville, we're able to give out about 2 tons of produce every week.
Wow.
To 200 or 300 different people. And so we're excited about being able to do that, and, you talk about who my community is, the people who are receiving, they love them some Chris Battle.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah.
They love them some Chris Battle. And it's this whole thing, in the Bible, in Leviticus 19, he tells those landowners who are farming to leave the corners of your field unharvested, and so that the poor can come and glean from it.
Yeah. And
so that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to be this gleaning thing where people can come and get those who can't get to the food, may not have the transportation, may not have the money to buy the fresh produce.
Right. They
can come here. We can come bring it to you, and where you can get this produce, and literally say, get your life saved,
Yeah.
So that's what we do. But ultimately, my goal is to go out of business.
Explain. What do you mean by go out of business?
I want to go out of business. I want to not be needed. Either by people who have producing their own food with their own gardens and they're sharing in the community, or there's a grocery store that's affordable and accessible to the community. And that's literally what we're working on now. We're looking at some spaces that would provide a place that we can literally have a brick and mortar place. We've been following this model. We're looking at where everything that we purchase, all the commodities, would be just a nickel over what we purchase it for, and all the produce would be free.
Wow.
So if you got $1.2 million where I can buy this building, I appreciate you sending that to me.
I wish.
But in the meantime, we're going to probably do a mobile market where we can again take it around the community. Let me tell you. I know I might talk too much, and forgive me. They did a news segment here on food deserts in Knox County. So there's like 12 identified food deserts, and it affects like 50,000 people in our community. Oh. They were interviewing a lady, elderly lady, and she says it takes her 2 to 3 hours to get to the grocery store using public transportation. That's not what got me. What got me is what she said next. I can only purchase what my walker will allow me to carry. I've never had that problem. I've had a car since, I was 16 years old. 1968 Rambler with 3 on the tree. I've always had a car.
Mm-hmm.
I needed something, go to the grocery store.
Right.
If I forgot something, I'd go back.
Yeah.
I get whatever I wanted. That's what I have children for, so they can bring the groceries into the house.
Yep.
Never had that, but I never saw it through the eyes of someone who lives in a food desert, who doesn't have transportation, who doesn't have that car with a trunk, that have to only carry what their walker will allow them to get.
Yeah.
And that really messed with me. That stuck with me. It's like we can do better. If we had a grocery store that's here accessible, right here in the community, you wouldn't have, you have to walk, but maybe we'll carry it to you. We'll carry it. It's not because it's not that far, and you don't have to wait. You don't have 3 hours. It won't be a 3-hour journey.
No.
Yeah,
because if you can only take what your walker can carry and it's a 3-hour journey, you're spending your whole day shopping.
Yeah, shopping. But if it's a 5-minute walk, you won't mind walking every day.
No.
And then you get to see your neighbors on the way.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like I said, it just overwhelmed me, in the sense that it just, like I said, Chris, this is you. Just forget everything else.
Yeah.
This is what I called you to do. I kind of wish I wish God would have told me this 20 years ago, when I was when I was younger.
Yeah, but you may not have been ready to receive that call. We each receive the call when we're ready.
Yeah, but I can be honest with you, I'm probably haven't been happier.
No, right.
In ministry, because I see how it's literally affecting people and transforming lives, and I'm getting to meet some wonderful people.
I'm sure
within the community.
Yeah, you're no longer just church folk. You're in the community.
Yeah, I don't know if I like church folk as much as.
Yeah, I hear you.
I tell people I pastor Okra now, so they don't give me the problem.
No, yeah. Yes, the church is a wonderful place, but it's also full of heartache, and
it can be hurtful.
Oh yeah, extremely hurtful. You've shared about what you've seen in your community and the joy that you're bringing to your community, and I see the joy in you. Like, what has Jesus taught you personally, Chris Battle? Like, who is Jesus to you now that you've done this garden for 5 years?
Jesus for me, and I hope it doesn't sound sacrilegious, but it's like he's came off the cross, got up from the grave, and became a gardener. Mary thought he was the gardener at the tomb. And I understand why the gardener part now. Because when you're gardening, when you're working with people to garden, you have to be patient.
Yep.
You have to be nurturing.
Mhm.
You have to love. I mean, you don't do this because you want. You do this out of love. Trust me.
Yeah.
You know, and be willing to accept some defeat. You know, sometimes some stuff don't grow,
Right.
and things like that. But so Jesus has become more personable to me,
Hmm.
more practical, and in a very real sense, more powerful.
Hmm.
You know, because wholeness and healing is not just something we pray over people for, but it's something that can be very real and demonstrated. And I think it's being demonstrated through what we're trying to do with fighting food disparity. So yeah, he's been pushing me. He's my pusher man.
Yeah.
You know, to get out there and do more, and also a provider.
Hmm.
Also a provider. I'm gonna tell you another story. All right.
Please.
Okay. I don't know how much time I got, but I'm gonna tell you another story. I have been struggling with leaving the church, right, as pastor. I just felt my calling was somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But I was living in the parsonage. We had 8 children in the house at that time. And, you know, when you leave your job, that means you don't get a paycheck.
Right.
And when you live in the parsonage, that means you got to move.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were looking for a place, and we couldn't find a place that was big enough that we could afford on the east side of Knoxville, where we wanted to stay and minister. So my wife had a nonprofit for young ladies, single moms, and there was only one lady in there at the time. And so the girls moved in with her. Okay, moved in there. My wife and the girls moved there, and one of the elderly members of our church had a little 2-bedroom house. She said, "Pastor, you just go and stay over there with the boys." Okay, fine. You know, so the Sunday before I left, the day before I left, I met with this gentleman about a book study that I had conducted with him, and he had some questions. And so we talked, and I had told him exactly what I told you. Hey, you know, tomorrow's my last day at the church. It's kind of heavy on my mind. You know, we don't have a place to live. Right. We talked, we chatted. Everything was cool. We said our goodbyes. I went to the church that next day, said my goodbyes, preached my last sermon. Monday morning, I'm at the farm.
Mm-hmm.
The gentleman I had breakfast with on Saturday texts me and say, "Chris, are you at the farm?" I go, "Yeah." He said, "I want to come talk with you." And he comes by and he says, "Man, me and my wife have been praying about you." Oh, well, thank you. You know, we all need prayer.
Yeah.
He said, "It's just the 2 of us, and we live in a big old house." And I hope I don't start crying. I'm sorry.
No.
He said, "And I'm wondering if we moved out, would you all want to move into our house?" And I'm like, "Yes." I said, "But I ain't got no money," you know.
Hmm.
And he said, "Well, how much can you afford?" And I told him. He goes, "Well, that was as low as we said we could go."
Hmm.
He said, "Come by tomorrow, look at the house, tell your wife, bring the kids, see if you like it. Fine." Okay. So that was Monday. We're going to go to the house Tuesday evening. I'm at the farm Tuesday morning, and one of the volunteers comes up, and she goes, "Chris, me and my husband have been praying about y'all. And, you know, we live in a big old house. And we were wondering if we moved out, would you all want to take it over?" So now I'm laying out on the ground, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, who does this but God?
No, right.
You know, I'm worrying about where I'm going to live, and he's already set it up and provided. Now I got to make a choice between 2 big houses. Okay. So we ended up going with the first house, which meant they had to go buy a house. But they are people of means, and
Right.
they can.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, we got a call, said, "Hey, Chris, we found a house. They accepted our bid. We're going to close May 30th. And June 1st, you can move in. And this was back in 2019.
Okay.
And 2019. And he said, but we got one problem. I'm like, what's that? He said, the house we're buying is bigger than the house we live in. So instead of moving out of that house and moving into this one, and you moving out of your place and moving to the old one, why don't you just take the big house?
What?
Yeah, that literally happened to me, bro.
Yeah.
But it was more than just a house being provided.
No.
It's what God was confirming. Like, Chris, you're on the right path. Just keep trusting me. Keep following me. I'm going to take care of you.
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of your family. You know, and it's been like that from, like for me, I don't worry about stuff. I quit worrying. I know, like, okay, if he can do it for the, because that's a big time move right there.
No, that's huge. Yeah.
And God, extremely.
Yeah. God saw your heart. He sees you. He saw your desires. And he just graciously, like in a garden, just provides.
He provides.
He provides.
I have been preaching trusting in Jesus for years. I know what it means now.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I know what it means. It's not a cliche anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So as we begin to sort of wrap up, like what's the story you hope the church tells in today's culture?
I hope we can understand that we need to get out of the building. Our church caught fire in 2012. And we had people we were meeting in a school down the street from us. And we had people who would not come to the school and worship because it wasn't a church.
Right.
And I think we've gotten so connected with the building that we've identified with, that we've missed the community that the churches are in. And I want us to get to this point where we're not consumed by a beautiful edifice, but we are consumed by beautiful people who live beneath the shadows of our steeples. I want us to see the value of community and the people who may never grace the threshold of your church, who have significant problems and struggles, but also have many assets and gifts that can be utilized. And I believe God gifted all of us to be utilized for His glory, and again to create the kingdom which He wants us to establish. I think we got to get beyond our political anxieties and all the stuff that divides us. It's just, it frustrates me, But when they come to the garden, we don't care about your politics.
No.
We're talking about the soil. So yeah, for me, I've probably become a bigger critic of the church. I hate to say that in that way, but it's a loving critique.
Yeah.
It's a loving critique because I believe, Jesus said, He said, build my church. He never said build a building. Never said build a building.
No.
But I think it's about building relationships with people and letting your light so shine that, they might see it and glorify our Father in heaven. I think that's what it's all about. Just being in proximity to the people that they may see the presence of God. And they may know that he is still king. He reigns. Yeah.
Wow. That's beautiful. Your passion, your love, and yes, it's a critique, but it comes from a place of love and a place of it's beautiful, Chris. Like
Oh,
I
thank you.
feel privileged.
Oh man, bless you.
No, yeah, you're
Appreciate it.
telling a story and hoping you don't tear up, and you're speaking right now, and I'm welling up just because it just feels like this is what the church is supposed to be about,
Yeah.
and there is such the church and God's people, if we can move beyond ourselves and see the needs in the community and just go feed his people, like
Fees people.
go feed his people.
Yeah.
Um, if people are interested in understanding more about food deserts or community gardens, like, do you have any advice for where people could start? And because I'm even in Flagstaff, I'm sure there are food there. I know there's food disparity issues, and
That's a huge question.
I know it is, but okay, like, how do we? What's some practical advice? Where do we like? Because it's nice to start theoretically,
Yeah.
but I'm like,
Well, I mean, for me, practical is just start a garden.
start a garden.
It doesn't get you a pot and put a seed in it.
Okay. Yeah. There you go.
I mean, it's really just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Because that seed's going to do what God intended it to do. There's something, seed will grow in the crack of concrete. But,
Right.
I think if people just begin to, and for me, it's like whatever the issue is, we have a plethora of issues in my community,
Mm-hmm.
bunches of them.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to solve one right now.
Yeah. Yep.
My focus is on one. But if you are in a food desert, you can create community gardens. You can help people learn how to garden. Just start growing things. Maybe invite farmers to come in and do a farmer's market, an affordable one if that's possible.
Right.
But I think everything has to be done in the context of the communities. There are technically some food deserts here in Knoxville, but they wouldn't consider the food desert because of the financial aspect of it.
Right.
But I think just seeing people at their point of need and addressing it is the first step. First you just got to see people.
Cool. Yeah.
See the people, hear their voices, respect their voices, and then begin to do something about it in partnership with them.
Yeah.
I couldn't do this if people, we start community gardens now, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it if churches wouldn't let us use their property. I couldn't do it if people in the community wouldn't adopt a bed or whatever.
Yeah.
We just bought a piece of property. We call it the concrete garden because it's on a slab of concrete.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we got like 30 beds on a slab of concrete. And it's right there in the midst of what they call the gun zone. And we're just trying to offer some beauty in the midst of this ugly spot.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a nice pollinated garden because I want butterflies everywhere.
Yeah. Yep.
I want, butterflies and collard greens.
Mm-hmm. And guns beat into plowshares.
Yeah. Yeah. I know Shane Claiborne, and he actually gave me a plow, a little trowel that he made out of a gun.
Awesome.
That's kind of my emblem, to keep moving. My mantra is from the Talmud. It says, be not daunted by the world's grief. Do justice now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. We're not obligated to complete the work, but neither are we free to abandon it. And for me, God has put this work in front of me, and I just got to do it. It's what I wake up for.
No. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Again, just a privilege, Chris. Like you are a beautiful soul and person.
Oh, bless you, brother.
Yeah. Like I said, it was on a whim. I emailed you to ask, and I, you never know what to expect when you meet somebody for the first time, or, you trusted me, and it has been a joy and a privilege. The
pleasure's been all mine, brother.
I appreciate it. Something I like to do towards the end is just a few rapid fire questions.
Sure.
It's a little change of pace. So what's one food you refuse to eat?
Probably beets.
Beets. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of beets.
Gotcha. What's the best thing you've ever eaten?
Ooh. My grandmother's Castella Parthenia battles collard greens.
Okay. What makes her collard greens?
I know what it is, but it's just disgusting.
Okay.
She put lard in hers.
Oh, absolutely. All soul food starts with a good helping of lard.
Talk to me, brother.
Amen.
Yeah.
And finally, there's a conversation amongst chefs about last meals. Like, if you knew this was going to be your last meal, what would you want to have and why? And so, if you knew you had one last meal on earth, what would that be?
Man. That is a darn good question. It'd probably be a good ribeye. I'm a pretty common guy, so it's going to be real basic. Okay.
Yeah.
But ribeye with a side of fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, some black-eyed peas.
Yep.
And probably some rice. I love rice with some gravy.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And probably with the community you're serving.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Let's set up a big picnic table in your garden and let's have a feast.
I need to come to Flagstaff. I've never been there.
Oh, we'd love to. Yeah. No, it's gorgeous. We're in the mountains. We're near Grand Canyon. We're near Sedona. There's some beautiful hiking and good stuff to do here.
Cool.
So, well, Chris, this has been a pleasure. If people want to learn more about your work and your organization, is there a place they can find you?
Yes, they can go to our website. It's battlefieldfarm.org, battlefieldfarm.org. And you can learn all about us there and contact us through that.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that that's in the show notes. But again, if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with others. And I think this is an episode you definitely want to be sharing with others, as Chris's stories and heart for his community is something that is inspiring for us all. So thanks for joining us on this episode of The Biggest Table, where we explore what it means to be transformed by God's love around the table and through food. Until next time, bye.